There we go. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here.
Of course, and it's so good to see you. It's been a decade, I want to say,
Yes,
since.
more than a decade, because I've been in Albuquerque in 2008.
2008. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. Time flies. But it's been a long time, and obviously you don't live in the US. Do you really quickly want to introduce yourself in your own words? Who are you and what do you do?
Okay. My name is Eliane. I think it's a little bit difficult to Americans to pronounce my name, like Eliane or Elaine or something.
Elaine. Okay.
And I'm a journalist. I graduated in journalism in University of Sao Paulo. It's the biggest here in Brazil. And part of the course I took at the University of New Mexico.
Okay.
I spent 5 months living in Albuquerque, and it was an incredible experience. It was my first time abroad, and the first time that I left my mother's house. So, and so I'm a journalist. I'm a reporter, and nowadays I'm a documentarist as well.
Okay, that's quite a bit of stuff. I mean, I've seen you since you've left here, since we first met. Obviously, we followed each other on social media, and I've seen your career progress. And I think the group of people that we both knew here, at least the Americans that we both knew here, always speak so highly of you, and how well you're doing in your career, because you're working for one of the larger news corporations in Brazil, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's a big deal. And you're a reporter. You're on television, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's a big deal. Even though in a lot of people in the U.S. tend to get very U.S. centric, you know how Americans can be. If it's not happening here, it's not happening in the rest of the world. But that's a big deal. How has your career evolved over the last 12 years? After going back, did you get a start right away? And is it what you expected it would be?
Yes, it is more than that I expected.
Okay.
Actually, when I decided to be a journalist, I never thought about being on TV. I thought I could be a newspaper journalist, because in my mind, the newspaper was something more purer than the TV. I don't know why. It's a concept that I don't know. Maybe in my university, I learned that newspaper is serious. I don't know. And when I was at UNM, before I went to UNM, I had a lot of internships in magazines and in press office, NGO. So I was the first. When I entered the college, I start working right away. And I missed working in UNM. I tried to work over there, but I think that the language barrier was something, and I couldn't work. I don't know. I couldn't find a job. And then when I came back, I was like willing to work, because I think journalism, for you to be a good journalist, you have to experience the market. You can only study. And then I went to this education project, and I was there. It was a website, and I was I was not happy there. And then I tried. I thought, okay, so I think I'm gonna try to go through this TV Global selection process.
Yes,
it's a very tough one, but I made it, and I started working there in 2009, and since then, yes, the year before, year after, and I started working there. And the other in 2010, I was invited to participate on this TV show called Profissão Repórter,
Yeah.
which is a very special show because I have the freedom of choose the subjects I'm gonna.
Oh wow. Okay.
You know, I'm gonna treat like the reports I'm gonna make. I can choose whatever I want, and so we have this very democratic meeting.
Process. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, and then everyone can share the ideas, and the better ideas go ahead, and the others the no very so good ideas they don't go ahead. So
Okay.
and I start in 2010. I started this process of knowing deeply my own country. I could travel a lot to the countryside and to see the problems we face here, you know. Sometimes people ask me, why don't you leave Brazil? Why don't you go abroad? And I think it's a good idea, maybe, you know, for a year. But I feel that I have a mission here because Brazil has a lot of problems, problems.
Of course.
And what I try to do as a reporter is to show these problems. I can't solve the problems, unfortunately.
Right.
But I can show these problems in order to the society to know this and to try to change this, you know.
Yeah.
So I feel very connected to this purpose, you know.
Yeah.
This is my life.
Okay, but I think that's very important because I think every journalist kind of goes into all of this, into this career path because they want to make a difference. I mean, I don't know of every journalist. I think that's a generalization, but I'm thinking that that's what you want to do, right? You want to expose truths in the world and find, find justice for people in a lot of different ways. It's kind of a weird kind of crime fighter, right? And it's it makes sense going back to what you said about newspapers, because you said it's the pure way, right? I saw a documentary recently. It's a show. I'm not sure if it airs anywhere else other than the US, called The Patriot Act, but they were talking about newspapers and newspapers being one of the places, the main places where really in-depth investigative journalism happens, and they expose amazing and crazy things, you know, everything from, from white collar crimes, rich people stealing money, which is, all the time, or to, even the Jeffrey Epstein, the pedophilia in the church, in the Catholic Church. So my question to you is, did you go into journalism wanting to do all of this, to find truths, or was it just a career that you just picked one day?
It's a tough question. I think I didn't have this conscious when I chose journalism. I didn't have. Okay. Because when you were 17,
yeah,
it's tough, to choose what you want to do in the rest of your life. It's a huge decision. So I thought I chose journalism at first because I like it to write a lot, and I like politician and history and geography. That's why I chose at the first time. I wasn't sure, but then when I start notice that journalism it's about of course trying to make justice, but not it's not always that we can reach this, unfortunately. Sometimes I get a little bit frustrated, but at least I tried. And I don't know, I have this feeling that Brazil, it's a lot worse than it was in 2008 or 2009.
Okay.
And so this is an example that we can't solve the problems, but we can at least show it, and we can listen to people. I think this is important, you know.
Okay.
when
Yeah.
i when I enter a house and I sit down in the couch and I'm talking to this person, and this person looks at me, and she doesn't, or he doesn't know me.
Mhm.
And but uh, all of a sudden she starts talking about her whole life, and this is so rich, you know. I feel so blessed for for the confidence. So
Mhm.
I can listen carefully, and then,
Mhm.
you know,
Mhm.
and be honest, and in the addition that it's something very important, you know.
Mhm.
I try, because, you know, we have a lot of material, hours and hours of
Yeah.
recordings or footage,
Sure.
and then I have to be honest in my edition, you
Right.
know.
Right.
So so it's a very uh, uh, tell stories,
Okay.
you know. It's
Yeah.
something, it's the best job I could have ever, you know, because
Yeah.
it's not of course this is a job, I need to pay my bills, but I get so much fun of
Yeah.
it,
Yeah.
you
You
know.
get. Mhm.
But sometimes it's very sad too, because what we face, what we see,
Yeah.
it's difficult to deal with it, you know.
I know, absolutely. What do you feel is how do you feel about the state of the world and how journalists are perceived right now and how they're seen? I mean, obviously, in Brazil, there's somebody in charge there that is very close and very similar to who was in charge here.
Yeah.
Is there oppression of the media? Is there kind of this attack on the media and journalists in Brazil?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. A lot of attacks.
Okay.
Like sometimes it's difficult even to go out in the streets, because people
Mm.
start, you know, they try to, sometimes they try to fight, you know, they try to kick
Do,
you.
do they recognize you? So they recognize you and they try to
um,
argue with you, or
they recognize
oh,
the
the
microphone.
microphone. Okay.
Yeah, they recognize.
So they
So we have,
really okay. Wow. Okay.
you know, because
Mhm.
TV Global, it's the my company where I
Mhm.
work. Um, in the past was seen by, like, it's a capitalist
Mhm.
symbol, you know.
Mhm. Mhm.
Now it's the opposite. It's like, you're communists. Like, what? You know, that's
Uh,
what we're facing this right now. It's crazy, but
yeah.
thankfully we can go independent every
Mhm. Mhm.
every time, you know, independent to who's in charge.
Yeah.
So that's why I continue working there, because I feel I can do my job, you
Mhm.
know.
You have freedom to do what you want to do.
Yeah,
Okay.
yes, but now it's very difficult for us here. I don't know, in US I think there's similar problems, right?
Yeah, so in the US, it's what's happening right now. It's obviously since 2016 or even before that, there was this kind of attack of like what fake news is. And it just comes down to manipulation of the media, propaganda, and trying to kind of destabilize how people get their information, right? More recently, the attacks have become physical in protests, but it's the crazy thing is that the violence is coming from the state, from the police, instead,
Mm.
and not necessarily from the public. So, journalists being detained, their equipment being, taken as well, shot at with rubber bullets or tear gas. So it's become more direct from the state instead of just kind of the propaganda against the media or against journalism. They've physically started to attack them and suppress them. So it's been quite an interesting time to be a journalist in the U.S., right? Because you go from because there's only in the US, it's very obvious which companies are major corporations and owned by conglomerates and trying to steer the conversation or the narrative in a certain direction, right? It's storytelling. But then there's companies that people really trust. And by people, I mean really liberals, right? People on the left that really trust and they get their news from. So me being in PR and public relations myself, I try to maintain like a neutral perspective on things. And there's only really a few organizations that are really kind of neutral and down the middle. And these ones are the ones I follow. Usually they're publicly funded ones that don't have a lot of money in them. So, but also they tend to not have as many resources because they're publicly funded, right? And they won't get in front of people's eyes as much. So a lot of people don't really know, I would say, the middle of the road story. Like they don't see both sides. So that was a very long answer to your question. But I can imagine that it's similar, right? It's similar in Brazil. I mean, and you're covering the news, what have you seen happening? Because you have to look at the world, right? And try to tell the story and synthesize it and like make it as simple as possible for the reader or for whoever's watching it. What have you noticed about what's going on in the world, or in the Brazilian kind of context? In what's going on in Brazil? I mean, what's shifting? What are the problems going on down there right now?
I think we have a lot of fake news here too.
Sure.
So what I notice is that the people start they only they if they had only their own opinions, but it seems that they have their own facts. You can have your own facts.
That's not how it works.
You know?
Yeah.
That's the problem. So you have this vision, this of word that things has to be in this way. So you're gonna create a text, or I don't know, a video that seems to be news, and you're gonna spread all over there. For you have to have a notion of what's happening here. We just found out that in Rio de Janeiro, the local government, they're paying people like they're employees from the government to try to attack the press.
Really?
Like, yes. We just find out this week, so the reporter's trying to talk to someone to make his interview, and then there's a guy who is like, no, you're global issue, which is like you
trash,
suck,
right? Yeah,
you're trash.
Yeah.
So they're being paid for the Rio government to do this.
Okay, so I'm assuming
so it's like
my question is to you is the Rio local government politically, are they very conservative or are they very liberal?
Very, very, very conservative.
Okay.
Very, very much.
So
in Rio de Janeiro.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's crazy. It's crazy because I mean, to me, it just doesn't make sense. I understand why they do it, right? You control the message, you control the narrative, and you can control people. And why is the conservative parties across the world are trying to manipulate the media and attack them so much? Like, and why do they have so much power? Do you feel like because you're out there, you're talking to the people, right? What are you seeing? Do you feel like they really just don't know, or they don't have access to stuff, or do you feel like they don't want to know? Do they feel unsafe?
I think it's both.
Okay.
I think there are a lot of people like about the pandemic, for example.
Sure.
It's comfortable for you to think that it's not that much. I'm gonna live my life the way I lived.
Mm-hmm.
It's comfortable think that way. And
Yeah.
we have a president who says that it's a little flu. The pandemic is just a little flu. He said that,
Right.
and there are
Right.
a lot of people that act like they don't wear masks, for
Mm-hmm.
example.
Mm-hmm.
They say, oh no, this is just older people get this virus.
Not me. Right.
So I think there's this they have this feeling, but I think this is not the majority. I think
Mm-hmm.
it's a minority, but
Mm-hmm.
this is a very loudy
Loud.
minority,
Loud. Yeah.
louder.
Yeah.
They scream a lot.
Okay.
That's why we
That makes
think
sense.
there are a lot of people.
Yeah.
But I think what's happening maybe in the world,
Mm-hmm.
this conservatives, this conservative parties like gain all the elections and
Mm-hmm.
etc.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's maybe it's a movement,
Okay.
um, because they see like the president. Oh yeah, that's the guy. Let's go back to our country when we could say everything we wanted.
Mm-hmm.
You can be racist. You can be a lot of things,
Yeah.
and it's okay, it's normal, it's funny.
Yeah.
I think,
Yeah.
but I don't think it's the majority. That's my hope.
Sure.
no
Yeah. Yeah. No, I don't. I mean, I don't. You're right. You're right. I think you made a good point. Is that they just happen to have the microphone and be the loudest ones right now in the room.
yeah
Um, and that's unfortunate. It's scary because there's a lot of people getting hurt because of that ignorance. And as a journalist, do you feel like you're almost responsible to try to fix it? Like, do you feel like you have a responsibility, and even more so now than before, to try to get the message and people in the stories out there? Do you feel the weight of that? You know?
I, I think our job now, the
Hmm.
journalism, is more important than ever, because we can save lives. Simple as that.
Sure.
When you say, when you, and about the pandemic, I think it was like a turning point.
Hmm.
uh, the good information, the right information, is capable to save lives.
Hmm.
That's the point. So the fake news can kill people.
Yeah.
When you say, the alcohol, it's there's a fake news famous. It was famous here. This guy made a video for YouTube.
Yeah.
He said, oh no, alcohol doesn't work. The alcohol, alcohol and nothing. It's
Yeah.
nothing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or if you eat something, if you eat apples, you'll be free from coronavirus. This kind of things. It's
It's like a dog.
so the
Gee.
it's fun. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
No,
And
it's insane. I mean, so people believe it because they don't want to let go. They're in denial of the fact that they have to let go of this life that they thought was actually benefiting them, but it wasn't, right? So they don't want to let go of this reality that they were living in. Does that make sense?
yeah, yes. And I think, unfortunately, the history will tell us about what was right and what was
Hmm.
wrong, but it
Hmm.
can be, too late. Like the losses we had, like a lot of
Sure.
people died.
Sure.
So
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's all very heavy stuff. um, can we go back a little
yeah,
bit? So, I mean, let's talk about your story, since we're both storytellers. Um,
okay.
where were you born? I mean, what was your growing up like? Were you always kind of looking back? Obviously, looking back, it's your vision is perfect in 2020, but can you, looking back at your early life when you were a child, did it make sense that you became who you are today? Or what were you like as a child? And where did you grow up?
I grew up in Sao Paulo,
Hmm.
which is the biggest city here in Brazil.
Sure.
And my father is a professor. My mother was at home with us.
Uh-huh.
And we had a modest life. Like, we were
Hmm.
not poor. We weren't poor, but we hadn't much money, you know. So so everything was like very counted. You know, we had our food, we had everything. My parents paid for my education, and so we hadn't money for anything else. But I think they choose very well. You know, they choose the education. My education, my. Unfortunately, we don't have good public schools here in Brazil, and if in order of, you know, giving a good education for your children, you have to pay for it. So yeah, so I could study in very good schools here, and I had a very free childhood. You know, I was like I was free. I was climbing trees, and it was awesome. I don't know today. I don't know. I can't allow my daughter to do the same, because the violence and other stuff here in Brazil.
Sure.
And but I had a very happy childhood. It was very awesome. My parents, they struggle a lot to give everything for me, you know, that I wanted, that I needed.
Yeah.
And I think that I think this willing for justice that I have today in my professional my profession, I think I got from my father, I think.
Okay. What was he a professor in? What did he teach?
Physical education.
Okay.
Physical education.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and why did he? Why do you think it came from your father then? What is that? Just part of who he is as a person?
I think he had to fight a lot, because, for example, my grandfather, his father, my father's father, he wanted him to be a doctor, or I don't know, a lawyer, you know, and he had to fight a lot and I think it was good for him to be being an argumentative person, you know, to have to argue, to say, no, I want this because of that. And I think I got this from him, I think. And yeah.
Okay. And do you try to, I mean, given your upbringing, obviously education is very important. And you just mentioned your daughter as well, that she can't do the same stuff that you used to do when you were a child, right? I look at my kids and I feel the same way, right? Or I wonder, why did my parents leave me alone so much? You know, just like
me too.
What was wrong with them? No, but because I see my kids, I remember at my kid's age, my son's 11 now. When I was his age, like I was doing so much more, and now I look at that, I'm like, no way, right? So, how has all of that, and also your job? Because I mean, as a journalist, I feel like you're automatically an activist and an advocate for people. You tell people stories, right? And I'm proactively that way as well. You see a lot of what's going on in the world. How do you feel that's impacted your parenting with your daughter?
I think I don't want her to be locked here in my home, you know. Of course, now we're in the pandemic, but I want her to walk on the streets, to see people, to talk to people, to anyone.
Yeah.
You know, I don't want her to be afraid of the world. I want her to talk to anyone, like a person who lives in the streets.
Yeah.
Let's talk to these people, you know. We don't have to be afraid of them. I don't want her to be. So I think that's why, like, I had this opportunity of traveling around my country to see people, and I want her to have the same opportunity.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know if she'll be a journalist. I don't know. I really don't care. She can be whatever she wants to be.
Sure.
And I will be always at her side, supporting her in all decisions she made. But yeah, I want her I don't want that she will be afraid of the world. I want her to be free, you know, and talk to anyone. I think.
Yeah. So how has, I mean, from when we met in college, we were obviously having such a crazy time.
Yes.
It was a fun time back then. And we were children. I mean, we were very young, you know,
Yeah.
and having such a great time. Just how, I mean, how is it
Embarrassing
now?
question.
No, I mean, not embarrassing question. I'm just like thinking back, and I was like, wow, like I'm so still alive. But I think, well, actually, I will tell a story. I think I remember you and Marina are still in the U.S., right?
Yeah.
You, Marina, it may have been Tatiana, who you recently had a discussion with, and maybe Larissa as well, who I was recently talking to as well. You all were in the back of my car because we were driving to a party, and we stopped to get alcohol at a local grocery store. And I don't think you thought I understood what you were talking about, but because at that point I didn't know Portuguese. Since then I've learned. But at that point, you all were discussing something about a green card. and like and like finding a boyfriend or something like that, right? And I don't remember the discussion because again, my Portuguese didn't exist back then. I knew enough Spanish to understand what. So, and then I remember one of you, it may have been you, asked me, Oscar, do you have a girlfriend or are you married? And I looked back and I said, no, why? Does one of you need a green card? And you all just like the look in your faces because I don't think you thought I understood. And you all started laughing so hard. And I just remember that story.
I didn't remember that.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah,
didn't remember that.
I think Marina remembers it. And she's like, yeah, I can't. Yeah, it was embarrassing. But it was funny because I'm just driving around with these Brazilian girls in the back of my car and they don't think I can understand what they're talking about. And it was a fun time. That was one of the many stories. But I mean, we're all, if you keep track of everyone, I mean, Tatiana's doing her own thing, you're doing your own thing, I'm doing this, Marina, Larissa, I mean, those two are PhDs at this point, you know. That specific group of women, I don't think you all knew each other before then. Maybe I'm wrong, but you've
No,
all,
we didn't.
yeah, you've all grown into these just amazing individuals with families and with all of this, right? Like, how does it feel to like look back and be like, wow, you know, at least for me, I'm so fortunate to know all four of you, you know?
Oh,
So
thank you.
yeah, of course. No, how does it feel to you? Like, do you keep in touch with anybody from back then? And how is that for you? How, looking back, like, could you have imagined that you'd be like this happy? I mean, because you seem very happy, right? Obviously, life has
Yeah.
happened. Sickness has happened, right? A lot of different things have happened, but here you are. How does it feel? I mean, coming in the past 12 years, how do you feel emotionally? You know, what's changed? What hasn't?
Whoa.
I mean,
Whoa.
you still have that sweatshirt from the University of New Mexico that you're wearing
Yeah,
right now. Your Lobo.
I love
Yeah.
this blues.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. um, that moment for me was very special because I felt that I could do anything I wanted. You know, I think I grew up a lot because, you know, I left my country,
Yeah.
I left my mother's house,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't know anyone. Anyone. I didn't speak English very well as well. So I was like, okay, how can I go? How can I gonna live here? Am I gonna survive after all? You know?
Yeah.
And then I felt that okay, I'm capable to do this. I'm capable of making new friends, and I grew up a lot. I felt free, you know. I think it was the a lot of freedom. And but in the end, at the end of that period, like I spent 5 months there. When I arrived in the 4th month, maybe, I don't know, I was like desperate to come back. I wanted to come back so bad, you know, because I think it was like, okay, I think I've done here.
Yeah.
You know, I have to be a responsible person again, you know, because
you were so like, irresponsible for so long.
It was like, okay, no, I did well in the in my studies. I received a scholarship, like $2,000 maybe, I don't know, because of my grades, you know.
Yeah.
So I could have a lot of fun and at the same time attend the classes and study and everything.
Yeah.
But still, we go out. We usually go out every day, like Monday, Tuesday, every day. No, it was like insane.
No, I remember.
So
I remember
I had to stop.
I remember you taking Larissa out, and she would fall asleep at parties. Do you remember that? She would fall asleep with her arms crossed like this, because you would take her everywhere, and she didn't want to. She was so homesick. She didn't like it here.
Yes, it's true. And you know, even today, when I talk to her, sometimes, she said, "I don't have a clue what I did over there. I can't, you know, like understand what happened. Even today." She said. She said.
Okay. Yeah. 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 No, absolutely.
I don't know what New Mexico was for me. You know, I still now I don't know. Yeah, I still don't know.
She doesn't. Well, she came back to the U.S. to do her PhD, right? So that was a crazy thing. So, but yeah, and she's back in Sao Paulo, and we talked on my birthday. She reached out to me on my birthday recently, and we just chatted for a little bit. I don't know if she had gone back, but yeah, no, I remember those times very vividly, and all of you very well. I mean, Marina obviously the most, because she stayed. Well, she came back, right? And I think you all left, and she didn't want to come back, and she's the one that ended up staying. You know, so I think it was everyone went down their different paths, but I remember every single one of you so fondly, because we just had such a good time. And again, we were very young, and now we all have children, and we hope they don't know about these stories.
I hope they don't do the same, right?
I mean, yeah. If they do, I would understand. They're gonna do what they're gonna do, but at the same time, like, you know what? Like, if I could protect them from that. I remember a camping trip, a very specific camping trip, very well. Where there was the giant dust storm, and it was insane. But, anyways, I mean,
and very cold, very cold.
It was cold for Brazilians. Because it doesn't get cold. I mean, it gets cold in Brazil, but it doesn't get as cold as it does here in the U.S., right? Right. So it was. I mean, still, because I got my master's degree in Brazilian studies, and there was a lot of Brazilians that would come up here, and they're always like, "Oh my God, it's so cold." and I'm like, it's not just. I'm like, it's only September. Like, wait. Wait until December. So it's very different, right? But anyways, it's a different thing. I need to get back down there. I need to go to Brazil. I've never been, but I really want to go so bad. Maybe when this pandemic is over, I'll make a trip down to Sao Paulo and visit all of you. And
I would be so happy.
Yeah, absolutely. So it would be very good. And then but yeah, I mean, I want to thank you so much. First and foremost.
Thank you, Oscar.
For staying in touch, for being a good friend. For creating those happy memories long time ago, and then also, you know, for being a good journalist. Even if it's something that I don't get to watch or see, I think it's important to tell people stories. That's a big part of why I do this podcasting, is to tell people stories and to get the story out, right? Not just for me, to get the story out for people to hear. And you do that. and you try to tell the truth. And at this time in history, in global world history, I mean, I hope we're going to look back and think, you know, it was journalists that were able to kind of get the story out, and that were able to tell the truth, and that were able to save us, right, from ourselves. And you know, keep doing what you're doing, because you're doing good work. I see, as far away as I am, I see that, you know. So I want to make sure that you know that you're being recognized and that you're being seen by all your friends abroad, regardless of the country that they're in. Like, we see you, you know, and you're doing really good stuff, you know, and we send you, your husband, and your daughter all the love in the world, because you deserve it, you know. So
Oh.
do you have a web page? Is there, where can people find your articles, even if they're in Portuguese? I'm sure they can translate, like Google Translate stuff, but is there a place where people can find your stuff online?
I think in Instagram, they're all
Okay.
there.
Okay.
Um, there's a platform. I don't know if people have in US have. I think some people has, but it's like a streaming service called Global Play. It's kind
Okay.
of similar of Netflix, you know.
Oh, okay.
And so all my works are there.
Okay.
And so I have this documentary about Marielle Franco, which is a
Mm-hmm.
series.
Mm-hmm.
It's my
Okay.
last job.
Okay.
And yeah, and you can reach me in Instagram and Facebook,
Okay.
Twitter,
Okay.
but more in Instagram.
Okay. So I'll go ahead and I'll link all of that information. So I'm gonna hit stop record.
Okay.
But
Okay.
guys, if you're listening to this, thank you so much for listening. I hope you all enjoyed the episode, and then we'll talk to you all later.